Hey guys, welcome back to the Jeep YouTube channel. My name is Austin, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace your rear wiper motor on your 97 to 01 Jeep Cherokee XJ. Now it should be a fairly easy replacement on this vehicle, so let's dive in and get started. So if you clicked on this video, it's probably because your rear wiper is not working on your Jeep Cherokee, which could actually be a number of things, not always just the motor, which is the case for me today. You want to diagnose your issues first, check for power in all the locations, and determine what the actual culprit is before you start actually replacing parts. So a number of issues that could make the rear wiper not work for the Jeep Cherokee is one, you could have a bad fuse. You want to check the fuse box underneath the hood, make sure the fuse is all good for that. Another issue is you could actually have a bad switch. And I've actually had a bad switch on mine as well, along with this motor. So it could have actually a couple different issues leading to this motor not working at all. Another issue is actually the rear wiring harness that goes through this door hinge right here. A lot of times after you open and close this many years, the wires could actually crack and split inside there. So you want to make sure you test that. Make sure you don't have any wires that are not connected, otherwise obviously you're not getting power to your rear wiper. Then lastly, if all those check out, it's probably your motor that is shot, which is a common issue on these Jeep Cherokees as well. So today we're going to be replacing the motor in my rear hatch here. I just got the cheapest one I could find on eBay, about 40 bucks. They're all pretty much Chinese, so why pay for something that's 80 bucks that still has crappy reviews, because they're all pretty much just made in China. So I'll put a link down below if you're interested in buying that as well. So let's get started. It's pretty simple on replacing this guy. We got to take off the rear wiper arm and then take off this inner molding on the rear hatch, and then we can access our rear wiper motor. Alright, so we need to be able to remove this rear wiper arm to be able to pull a shaft through, because this motor is obviously going to come out from the inside. So we're going to pop up this cap right here, and we have a 13mm nut, and then we also have this washer line, which you could basically just pull it out the back, and this has a little nipple right there that fits over. So we'll loosen this guy up. It's a 13mm. And we should be able to take this and wiggle it off there. Next we got this retaining nut right here. I'm just going to take an adjustable and loosen this guy up. It shouldn't be on there too tight. There we go. This trim piece right here can actually stay into place. Now we'll jump onto the inside and start taking off the interior panel. Alright, so first thing we're going to remove is this rear grab handle. They got these little covers over here. You can't get them out by hand. You can take just a little screwdriver and kind of pry them out of place. And then underneath those we have 2 screws going in. That's going to be a T30 screws. Next we got a bunch of Phillips fasteners holding the rest of this into place, as well as some hidden clips that all we have to do is just pull down. But we got 2 on the side here, 4 on the top, and then 2 more on the side. So a total of 8 screws we need to remove. Some of them are missing on mine. Alright, now the rest should just be popped into place. We'll just gently pry on it. If it's a little tight, you can take a trim panel removal tool and kind of stick it in between the hatch and the plastic. And there we go. Alright, so with that panel off, we have our electrical connector that goes into our motor right here. It's just a 4-prong connector. They have little tabs on the side. Mine are broken because this was messed with before, so you're going to push them back, and then you can pull your connector out just like that. Now the next thing we got to do is remove our old motor. It's held in by two 10mm bolts. pop that out of place, just like so. That's our old guy. Alright, so we got the new motor and the old motor side by side here. You want to make sure they look identical, obviously, so that they're going to fit. One thing we're going to have to transfer over for sure is we got these rubber isolators. They just pop out of place here. We're going to pop it into our new motor right here. But another thing I was looking as the rear wiper shaft right here. The original one has this nice plastic flange. It's going to hold against that back of that hatch nicely, compared to this just little collar that's right here. So I want to see if I can actually swap this old one onto the new motor right here. So I'm going to take off our new hardware on our new motor. And then I'm just going to slide off this collar. And then for over here, it's a little corroded. I'm going to see if I can break that free. I'm going to use maybe a little bit of penetrating fluid on that. There we go. Old one's out. Just be careful not to damage that since it is plastic. And then we'll pop out these guys while we're here too. Now I'm going to slip this over the new one. They have a little alignment notch right here that's going to go and correspond with this high fin that's right there. So we'll slide this into place. And then to help these original isolators kind of slide into place, just going to use a little WD-40. And actually it's easier if we just pop this grommet in, and then we'll take our little brass bushing and pop that in. And there we go. That guy is ready to go back into that hatch. Now we'll take our new motor, slide it into place through the hole. Get our wiring onto one side. And then we will feed in the original hardware. And snug it up. Then we'll take our electrical connector and plug it back into place. That should stay nicely there. I'm going to get a zip tie just to go around this entire connector just because it's a little bit broken for the locks. Alright, so that's all secured in there. Before we put our hatch interior panel back on, I want to make sure that this works. So I'm going to go over to the front, flip the switch, and see if we got power going to this motor. There we go. You can hear that guy working. Alright, so I was still having some issues actually getting this to work, but I figured it out. It's kind of weird how it was working. I still wasn't getting power back here. Checked all the fuses, which was actually located in the passenger side kick panel. There's, I think it's fuse number 22 on that. Checked all the fuses while I was there. The entire box is good. I also took out the rear switch in there and checked for power. I was getting power in the back of the switch. I plugged it back in and then it started working again. So I think what the issue was is that possibly, since it has been used in a while, there could have been corrosion built up on the back of the terminals for that switch, and then now it starts working again. And then I also noticed that my rear motor actually started working again, but however, I think this motor is weak, which is causing some issues. Possibly too much amperage on the circuit, could have possibly arced or something in the original switch, making it not work at all. Because as soon as I plug this in and I put any sort of load on here, like simulating a wiper, it kind of times out and does not work entirely. So I'll plug this back in and show you quickly. So you can hear this move and see it, but it's very slow. And if I were just to put a little resistance on here simulating a wiper, see how it just stopped like that? So that's probably what I was having an issue with before. It kind of did a little bit of start-stop because it randomly started working in the winter last year and then hasn't worked since. So I think that it's just a worn-out motor. Yeah, there it goes again. Kind of stops. I'm not putting really any resistance on this at all. It's very slow, so good thing we're going to replace it with a new one today. So we'll just replace this the same way we took it off. Snap it off first. Then we'll put our screws back into place. Alright, so we got our new shaft right here. We got a new provided nut. We're just going to tighten that up right here. This is going to tighten it up to the back door panel. We don't want anything crazy tight, just a nice snug. Then we got our wiper arm. We're going to slide this over and line it up as close as to what it was before in the off position, so it's pretty much level on the window. And once again, you want to make sure your motor, if you're running it beforehand, make sure that fully reset itself, otherwise you're going to be wiping the back of your tailgate instead of the glass. Then we got a new nut on here. We got it to where I want it, and then I'll just snug this guy up as well. And then we'll just plug our little washer tube back into place. And last but not least, I also went and got a new wiper since this one's old. So I'll go ahead and replace this as well if I figure out how to take it apart. And the factory size wiper on these 9701s is actually a 13, but you can fit a 14. This one's actually a 13, but they didn't have a 14 in stock where I went to. So I'll run this for now. One thing I am going to do, since as you can see my arm is a little bit rusty, just going to lubricate down here a little bit where the hinge is, so that way I'm getting full spring effect. And already that's better, just so I can make sure that's pushing pressure on the window and I'm getting a clean wipe. Alright, let's go test it out. It's working beautifully. Now I'll just need to get my washer working, and then I'll have a fully functioning rear wiper system. Alright guys, before we wrap up this video, I do want to mention today's video sponsor, and that's by H-Calory. They were nice enough to send out this diesel portable heater right here, and we're going to take a look at it today, fire it up, and see what this thing is all about. Now, you guys might have seen these things across Amazon or on YouTube with other people reviewing them as well, and I actually do have another one of these, just a different brand, pretty much the same design though, and I've used it years in the past, and I've had great results with it, so I actually really like these things. They're fairly inexpensive to run. These are just little diesel heaters that put out a lot of heat, and what's really nice about it is that it's a fully exhausted system, so you don't have to worry about carbon monoxide in a closed area. So let's take a quick overview of this thing, and as you can tell, this basically just looks like an old computer box right here, and we have a main LCD display up here. We also have a nice remote to turn it on and off, turn it up and down as well. And on the front side here, we have a tube connection right here. So this is where our hot air is going to be blowing out. So the way that this is designed is that it's a heat exchanger. So we have an intake and exhaust for our combustion, as well as an intake and exhaust for just the air that's going through here. So that way there's no exhaust actually touching the hot air that's blowing out. Now they do have an accessory kit that comes along with this just to get you started on it. So they do have some duct right here that you will put on there and point it wherever you want to. We also have air intake right here along with an air silencer, so this is going to be for our intake, so that way this keeps the noise down a little bit as well. And then we also have our exhaust system right here, which is just some flexible 1-inch exhaust pipe. We do have a 90-degree because our intake and exhaust for combustion is located on the bottom. And then we also do have a muffler to kind of keep everything nice and quiet, along with some hardware. Then another bag of full miscellaneous bolts and hose clamps as well. Now they do also have a power hookup right here because you will need 12 volts to have this operational. I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to do for mine, but for the most part, if you have this in an RV or trailer or something like that, you're going to be running on a 12 volt system already, so that should be pretty much ready to go. And then along with that, they have their user manual right here, which has a boatload of information because this unit actually can connect to your phone if you download the app, and you can control it remotely, which is pretty nice. It does have its own diagnostic system, so if there is throwing an error code on here, you can look up inside the owner's manual and take a look and see why that error is coming from, whether it's a fuel pump, temp sensor, or something like that. So moving back to the actual unit itself, as you can tell right here, we have a fuel tank that's pretty much located on top of the heat exchanger that's on the bottom here. And this is recommended to run only on diesel. I know some people run with a diesel used motor oil mix, but I'm just going to keep it with the diesel because that's what the manufacturer recommends on here. So on the back side here, we have our power hookup, which goes through our provided wiring harness, so that plugs right into there. Then it also has two terminals on here. You can plug into a battery. Otherwise, I'm actually going to be using a 120 12 volt power supply to power this. And if you are going to do that, you want to make sure that you get a power supply that can handle at least up to 15 amps, because the way that this thing starts up, it actually uses a glow plug like a diesel engine, and that thing gets really hot, draws a lot of amps, and just to be able to get this thing going. So I got a 20 amp power supply, which is just this guy right here. I'll put a link down in the description below if you're interested, and it basically just has a simple 12 volt car socket onto here. So all I have to do is just take a car socket male plug, put it on the end of this harness right here, and then we should be good to go. Now, obviously, depending on where you're going to use this thing, whether it's in vehicle or if it's in a structure or something like that, determines how you want to power it up. So I'm going to pull off the clips on either side over here. Pull off the cap, and then we should be able to pull straight up. As you can see, we have our fuel tank, not really bolted down, but that's alright, I guess, since the main cover kind of holds everything into place. Back here we have our fuel pump, so when we get this running, it is going to make a ticking noise, and to be able to control it from getting hotter and not as hot, basically is just how many pulses is on this fuel pump. So you'll notice that when you turn it up, the pulses on the fuel pump will start ticking a little bit more, and then a little bit less as you turn it back down. Other than that, there's not too much going on inside. I'm not going to rip this down entirely. There's a couple videos out there if you want to take a look to see how these things are constructed. On the back side, we have our air intake for our heat exchanger right there. And now if we move this onto its back, we have our intake and exhaust that we're going to have the exhaust vented away from us. If it's in a building or a structure, you want to make sure that goes out of the building. And that's where we have these nice adapters right here, so that way we can easily slip on a 90 degree, have it come out there. That way you don't have to mount this thing on blocks by having that come out at a 90 degrees. So as far as getting you all set up, as far as the whole installation on this, they do have a quick diagram on how everything needs to be connected right here on page 6 of the owner's manual. But depending on your application on how you want this thing set up, you can route the exhaust or intake any way you want to. Make sure obviously it's safe when doing so. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all set up, and then we'll be back to start this thing up and check out the functionality and see how much heat it puts out. Alrighty, so we got this thing all ready to fire up. I went ahead and put a quart of diesel in it, got my power cord hooked up to my 20 amp 12 volt power supply. You at least need 15 amps to make this work with the glow plug. We got our intake and exhaust all nicely going out the garage door right here, and I really do like the design of this 90 degree elbow on the bottom, so that way I don't have to put any standoffs to have this thing lifted off the ground for that, so that's actually going to be really nice. So we're going to fire this thing up for the first time, and it's going to take a while, a little bit, to get it going because we have to purge some fuel through the system. So I'm just going to fire this up. And now it's going to go through its warm-up cycle, which is going to take 1 to 3 minutes. So pretty soon we're going to start to hear that fuel pump kick in. And we also do have the remote, so we can control the frequency of the fuel pump. Is basically how this is controlled from up and down. So we have that with the plus and minus arrow and the on and off here as well. There we go. Now we're starting to hear that fuel pump kick on. Now it's in its startup mode where it's going to go on full blast, heat up this thing. I can already start to feel the air starting to get warmer on the end right here. So I got this on its lowest setting right now, so you can kind of get a feel for how quiet it gets, and it's actually not too bad. Easily have a conversation, have it on in the background, and it still puts off some nice warm heat coming out of the vent here. So it's been running for about 12 minutes or so, and I know these things can even get a little bit warmer, but I'm sucking in cold air from outside technically, which it's like 15 degrees, but I'm getting around 100, I think I read 152 degree air coming out of this. It's kind of hard to read the air temperature with this gun right here, but that's just kind of the surface temperature on the tip of this vent right here. So that's pretty darn warm air. Definitely going to heat up a nice small space in no time for sure. As far as shutting this down, it's going to go, I'm going to click the off on the remote here. It says off on the screen, and it's going to go through its shutdown sequence where it's going to cool off the heat exchanger and blow some air across it well after the fuel is out, so that way everything is nice and cool, doesn't damage the components. You want to make sure you don't disconnect the power until the unit is fully shut down itself and the fan is off. Alright guys, there you have it. This thing had a beautiful first run and everything went great on this for warming up. There is a lot of these that are on the market right now, but what really stands out with this one I like over all the other ones is this exhaust right here coming out the side, because normally you'd have just an outlet and you have to try and bend this pipe underneath it, and most of the time you have to put this up on like 2x4s or something like that, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. But this is nice, has that elbow on there. There is a little bracket that screws up in there, so that's nice and solid, not going to pop out of place. So I want to thank H-Calory for sending this out for me to take a look at today. I'll post a link down in the description below if you guys are interested to pick up a unit for yourself. I highly recommend. They're fairly inexpensive, I think just over $100 on Amazon. And I'll also put a link down in the description below for the power supply that I use here. You just got to make sure you're getting the correct one if you're planning on just plugging into a 120 volt outlet as well. So let's get back to the video. Alright guys, that's going to be a wrap for today's video. We got the wiper all working properly with that new motor in place, and I'm happy to be able to use that now, especially in the winter in the rust belt. As soon as you take a single drive, that rear back glass gets so full of salt you can't see out of it, so it's nice to have a wiper that works. I'll post a link down below on the motor that I used in this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, make sure to post them below and I'll be happy to answer. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe to the OutJeeping YouTube channel. And if you want to help support the channel, you can check out outjeeping.com for some t-shirts and stickers. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.